Hey everyone, my name is Kelly Caskey, and I'm doing the article review for this week on lessons learned from secondary schools using technology for school improvement by Barbara Levin and Lynn Shroom. Okay. The purpose of this article was to describe lessons learned by studying leadership in 8 award-winning secondary schools and districts that are recognized for successfully leveraging technology for school improvement efforts. The research questions that this study answered are: what role or roles does technology play in school improvement in exemplary award-winning secondary schools? And what lessons can be learned about exemplary school and district leaders who have used technology successfully as a level for school improvement? In the literature review, we needed to understand how educational leadership has been defined in recent years. Distributed responsibility and leadership is the main goal, and characteristics of some of these exemplary leaders involved other members of society to improve their schools and districts. They set the tone and helped create the vision, and were also catalysts for making things happen. Distributed leadership is a system of practice comprised of a collection operating in our data, which is comprised of leaders, followers, and a situation. And these are important to be understood together because the system is more than the sum of the component parts or practices. You need all 3 of them to create change and have a distributed leadership. Changing a school's culture requires shared or distributed leadership, which engages many stakeholders in major improvement roles, and instructional leadership, in which administrators take responsibility for shaping improvements at the classroom level. The study took a systems approach because schools are systems, which are schools and districts embedded in a larger system of interacting and interdependent components. By adding one component, in this case technology, to a system affects the other parts of the system, and that's what's being observed. Also, what's being observed is how context and environment influence the entire educational system and vice versa. It is believed that taking a systems approach help us understand the complexity of what exemplary school and district leaders do when they use technology to organize, implement, and promote student engagement and achievement, invigorate teachers, and ultimately improve their schools. Aspects of educational systems taken in consideration were support from parents and partnerships with social and cultural institutions. Also, the fact that students continue to learn outside of the school from influence of peers, mass media, and access to information technology and the internet. Successful principals are known as effective communicators, which means they listen readily and intently, openly share their thoughts and visions. And variables associated with teacher change and technology integration include knowledge, pedagogical beliefs, and school culture. Shift our mindsets away from notion that technology provides a supplemental teaching tool and assume, as with other professions, that technology is essential to successful performance outcomes. In the method, the data was collected through the use of observations, interviews, and document analysis for 8 intrinsic case studies of leadership. These schools were exemplary in districts recognized for effectively using technology in their school improvement. The study wanted to focus on secondary schools with ethnically, linguistically, and socioeconomically diverse students living in communities facing challenges many other schools face, including changing demographics, limited resources, expectations from parents for safe schools, mandates from the government for meeting adequate yearly progress, and pressures from business and industry to prepare workers for the 21st century. In choosing the sample, they used a purposeful stratified sampling from a pool of 24 schools and districts. And out of these 24 schools, these schools had received state or national awards as exemplary technology using schools, or received more than one technology grant. And this is an example of stratified sampling because one or more variable was taken into account for the outcome, and it strategically selected participants, and it guaranteed desired representation of relevant subgroups within the sample. They also use snowball sampling based on the leader's reputation at state or national level, which snowball sampling is selecting people who fit a researcher's needs, then using those participants to identify additional participants. Out of the 8 schools, 5 were traditional public schools, 1 was a public charter school, and 2 were magnet schools, the size ranging from 400 to 1,600 students, while the districts were ranging in size from 1,700 students to more than 103,000. The percentages of a free and reduced price lunch range from 22 to 86%. And with their population choice, granted, they chose 8 schools out of the entire nation state, so that's 16% of the population out of the state, and they chose schools from all over the nation to get a better, well-rounded population, choosing schools from the states of California, Colorado, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, North Carolina, Virginia, and Washington. The method continued. They spent 3 and 5 days studying each school and district with the use of interviews and focus groups. They also observed classrooms and attended various kinds of meetings. They used research protocols designed for each group of the key informants, which included the administrators of the school and district levels, the teachers, support staff, and school board members, and parents in leadership roles. They also obtained good documentation from each school and district to understand ways which leadership communicated its intentions. This included information from the website, school improvement plans, agendas, and minutes of meetings, internal and external publicity documents, student achievement data, leader blogs, and so on. The data collection was done with the help of a team of graduate students to help fine-tune the interview questions, observation protocols. They had a total of 150 interviews, 30 focus groups, and 150 classroom observations, with a total of 80 hours of data collection at each site. Content analysis of interview transcriptions, observation notes, and documents to identify practices used by leaders and teachers in schools and districts. They had constant comparative analysis on the interviews, focus groups, and observation data, including descriptive case studies submitted to the key informants to each site for member checking. This was to verify the analysis and interpretation were valid before undertaking the cross-case analysis of the lessons learned in all 8 cases. This also provided an emic and etic perspectives, which were insider and outside perspectives. For the data summary, we learned about the leadership of each school and district, also the technology and support available at each site, how professional development was handled, and the kinds of changes that teachers and leaders had seen happen to the curriculum and in teaching and learning for the 8 cases. The cross-case analysis was categorized as a series of lessons learned statements as stated in the purpose, and they came up with 218 lessons learned, which they organized into 7 key topics found across all 8 cases, which focused on vision and leadership, technology, planning and support, professional development, curriculum and instructional practices, school culture, funding, and partnerships. Breaking into the results, we found that technology is just one of many factors needed for school improvement, and the 7 other factors to be addressed for technology to be a positive lever for successful school improvement include having clear vision or mission and acting upon the principles of distributed leadership, creating structures and processes for technology infrastructure and support, providing ongoing high-quality professional development that is not one-size-fits-all, revising the curriculum to promote 21st century and student-centered instructional practices, focusing on an improving school culture, identifying realistic and sustainable sources of funding by thinking out of the box, and building partnerships with parents, families, and community members, as well as with businesses, industries, and colleges or universities. Breaking these 7 factors down in vision and distributed leadership focused on the teamwork and building broad-based teams, working together as a team, and being sure that the entire leadership team was on board with the vision, mission, and goals. Also, for the vision, it's the support the use of more digital curriculum, actively seeking partnerships with business and industry, or collaborating with tech companies. And the valued leaders also engaged in these practices across all 8 cases. They helped support teachers. They were an integral member of community beyond their role as the principal or superintendent. They provided instructional coaches or technology specialists to work with the teachers. They were not closed-minded to think that all veteran teachers are reluctant to change. They were open and transparent about new initiatives. They do not have hidden agendas, are advocates for teachers and schools to get resources, support planning, and led by example with passion and focus. In the technology planning and support, this was the planning for technology infrastructure. And first, the way that they did this was putting the technology that the teachers planned on using in the students in their hands first to make sure that they knew what they were doing. The leaders also involved the students' families in plans for technology initiatives and communicating clearly what this meant for the students and families, for the concerns of cyberbullying and the safety of the technology in students' possessions traveling to and from school, and also being understanding that the access to internet at home might not be guaranteed. Use of learning management systems, or an LMS, and getting all users trained to use it to make different in terms of changing instructional practices for teachers is also implemented. This includes online testing and gradebook programs, linked in testing features. It can help differentiate instruction and monitor the students' progress, and can also be used as a database for storing and sharing lessons plans that can be readily communicated with students and parents. For ongoing professional development, it was apparent in leaders that they knew that this was necessary and where to find the funds when little was available. This is the out-of-box thinking. They often use in-house professional development, which is a norm because it costs nothing, and it's also part of the cooperative culture of schools. It's peer-to-peer collaboration and the informal sharing, and encouraged and celebrated risk-taking. It encouraged teachers to share what they had learned with peers and modeled ways to integrate technology in staff meetings and through professional use. The teachers formed user groups when the principals set aside regular time for sharing successful uses. An example, creating Tech Thursdays, or having one day a week where the teachers could get together and share the shared information. Opportunities for professional development were categorized into novice, intermediate, and advanced users for specific programs, so these people could be better helped. They can also have early release days devoted to technology professional development, and other forms of ways to get this information are through Summer Technology Institute's boot camps, workshops, conferences, university courses, district-sponsored workshops, or there are also summer sessions, which are valued by the teachers because then they had time to figure out how to implement this new information into their classrooms. In the curriculum and instructional practices, they observed the core subjects of English, world languages, arts, math, science, geography, history, and government and civics, and other courses including business, technology, health, special education, and gifted education, which observed the examples of 21st century information, media, and information communications and technology skills. They also observed the range of teacher-directed and student-centered instructional practices influenced by the teacher's knowledge of the content, the ways about the knowledge of the technology in which it might be used to teach the content, one's knowledge, skill, and confidence with the technology itself, their personal beliefs about the role and purpose of technology in a classroom, self-efficacy beliefs, and school's culture around technology. Continued, they were focusing on these 21st century skills, which include critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration, with the use of oral and written communication, while building on prior knowledge to gain new knowledge. The way that students were using technology in classrooms can be used of online research or using tool software for recording notes, writing papers, creating presentations. Other forms are drill and practice programs, assessments, credit recovery, remediation. There are also online environments and websites that use videos to disseminate information or facilitate communication and enhance instruction. They also use problem or challenge-based learning for an interdisciplinary curriculum. And also there are other apps called Skype, Google Docs, email, and Rosetta Stone for communication as other examples. The school's culture is very central to the improvement of schools. One superintendent made it very clear that the importance of knowing every student, building relationships with students, improving student-teacher mentoring relationships, creating a supportive environment for teachers, and building successful leadership teams are all important in the school's culture. Also having the expectations for everyone to want to use technology, even if it isn't a trial and error method, and to also celebrate successes, even if they are small ones. And also to let the teachers know that they did not need to use technology in every lesson, but should do so when and where it made sense. For the funding aspects of the factors in improving schools with technology, leaders have to be entrepreneurial and develop skills in thinking outside of the box to find ways to sustain funds for these initiatives. They should also include the district's chief financial officer in planning all the school's improvement when including technology. Also have creative policy changes may free up monies typically that were used for textbooks. And they could use building funds to pay for infrastructure and technology, or the use of summer funds to purchase technology. Other ways that they could fund technologies was through fundraisers, or they could redirect their rental income for their building into a technology fund. If they had partnered with local businesses, they can get a percentage of their sales for the school's technology fund, etc. One of the other things that was really important was the importance of partnerships and partnering with nearby businesses, industries, and or universities or colleges, because this can provide potential financial backing in forms of donations or grants, and it also provides expertise in form of membership on planning committees and advisory boards. And it also garnering additional human and technical resources. And last, they needed to partner with the parents, families, and other community members necessary to sustain technology initiatives, because ways that they can do this are parent-teacher groups could help raise and designate funds for purchasing technologies in schools, or there might be volunteers who might be able to help staff computer labs during school or run after-school programs or clubs, or even help repair old technology if they have that information or that skill. Some of the limitations of the study that they pointed out was the size of the sample being only 8 schools, and also not having enough time to do ethnographic research to capture in depth how and in what ways culture developed in these places before the research was taking place. Also, it was proven that each school had history between a few months and 15 years of experiences with one-on-one technology initiatives, but they were not able to capture the history of how and when schools with the most experience with technology address the 7 factors. But for future research, they said because of the size of the sample, they wanted to study other exemplary schools inside and outside the United States to see if these findings are replicated or not, to determine what else might distinguish successful technology leadership from other factors that are implicated in successful leadership for school improvement. Summary and the recommendations summarize the system approach and distributed leadership allowed these exemplary leaders to leverage technology to organize, implement, and promote student engagement and achievement, increase school success, and reinvigorate their teachers. The leaders managed to balance their personal leadership with their desire to build on and include the skills and talents of others, and acted intentionally on a priceless of distributed leadership. And also to encourage and lead the implementation of new and exciting uses of 21st century technology tools. For the recommendations, they said to personally use and publicly model ways to use technology. Understand technology integration is not an all or nothing proposition. Be entrepreneurial in finding ways to fund and sustain these technology initiatives, and be open to policy change. Find, fund, and support a robust learning management system. Be willing to change something if it's not working, and to commit to ongoing professional development related to technology. In the final comments of the of the article, other factors observed the school's success was professional development of a collaborative school culture, changes in curriculum and teaching to focus on 21st century knowledge and skills, the use of assessment data for differentiation, and continuously addressed financial considerations, technology infrastructure and support, and collaboration with the surrounding community.